You're listening to Paradox Eclipse Theory, and this is Superheroes in the Dark Multiverse, when gods became monsters. In shadows where heroes once stood, something twisted now breathes. When light dies, even the strongest fall, and what rises in their place knows only hunger. If you're enjoying this descent into darkness, smash that like button, subscribe, and share this video with fellow Creepypasta fans. Drop a comment below. Your support helps this channel grow and brings more stories from the void. Now sit back, dim the lights, and let's begin. The stars shouldn't flicker. Not like that. High above Earth's curve, the black was pure, until the constellations began to stutter. Every light pulsed in sync, as if space itself had learned to breathe. Then came the sound, faint, distant, like a choir rehearsing underwater. Tony Stark sat alone in the dim blue wash of his private lab, eyes fixed on the holographic scatter of Stark's satellites orbiting Earth. One by one, they lit up red. He didn't speak at first, just watched the pattern emerge, an almost human rhythm. Heartbeat maybe, or Morse. Friday's voice broke the silence. "Sir, telemetry data from S-14 just corrupted. Packet loss across all frequencies." Tony leaned closer, jaw tight. "Define corrupted." "Rewritten, sir. Not erased. Replaced." On the main display, satellite feed S-14 flickered, a swirl of violet static, then a brief, impossible frame. A humanoid silhouette stretched across the stars like it was screaming through light. Tony whispered, "What the hell?" The audio feed clicked alive. It wasn't static. It was voices. Hundreds. Thousands. Layered over each other. Reversed. Whispering syllables that didn't belong to any human language. Then, buried deep under the distortion, one unmistakable voice. Cut through his own. "Tony Stark, we remember what you built." He froze. The sound wasn't playback. It was live. He switched to manual override, trying to isolate the transmission, but the signal slid between channels like it was alive. Every system he touched lagged, jittered, recompiled itself. His code wasn't his anymore. Friday stammered, glitching mid-sentence. "Origin unknown, source looping signal. Inside. Network." Tony ripped off his headset. The hum didn't stop. It was still there, under his skin, vibrating through his chest. Across Queens, Peter Parker jolted awake in his cluttered apartment. The city outside his window glowed wrong. Aurora streaks rolling through the clouds in slow waves of violet and green. His phone buzzed nonstop, every app glitching open and shut. The spider sense hit him like vertigo. But it wasn't danger this time. It was language. A whisper inside his skull. "We are already inside the web." Peter sat up, breathing fast. "Okay, nope. Not today. Not again." He reached for his mask on the nightstand, as if that could somehow make it normal. Then the whisper changed tone, soft, curious. "You built this, Peter. You spun the net. We just learned to hum through it." The lights in his room flickered, syncing to the same rhythm pulsing through the aurora outside. His spider drone on the desk started moving by itself, legs twitching to the signal. "Karen." His voice cracked. "You online?" No response. Just static and a faint echo of his own voice. "Don't unweave it." In rural Iowa, Clint Barton stood barefoot on his porch, bow in hand, eyes on the night sky. He hadn't heard a sound in years. Not since the blast that nearly took him out for good. But tonight, he felt something. The air trembled. His arrows, lined neatly in their case, vibrated in sync. One fell to the wooden floor, tip-tapping like a metronome. He crouched, fingertips brushing the shaft. The vibration wasn't random. It pulsed in sequence, short, short, long. Short, short, long. Morse code. Clint's breath hitched. SOS. Then his chest tightened. No, not SOS. Not a call for help. The rhythm shifted. 3 beats, then 2, then 1 long. He knew the pattern. It was the same pulse that once came from a Kree beacon buried deep in orbit. The one Shield swore had gone dark 70 years ago. He stood, eyes scanning the stars, violet flashes over the cornfields, the same hue Tony was seeing, the same hue reflecting off Peter's windows in Queens. everywhere at once. A low vibration crawled through the ground, humming through his bones. He looked down, his shadow stretched wrong, rippling like static. He whispered, "I don't like this." No one answered, but from somewhere deep inside the earth, or maybe above it, came a sound like distant thunder, the same reversed choir Tony had heard. At that moment, all three men, Iron Man, Spider-Man, and Hawkeye, looked up. Three skies, one pulse. Queens shimmered violet. Iowa glowed. Stark Tower's glass reflected the storm above. A final burst of light arced across the stratosphere, and the aurora solidified into a lattice, a perfect geometric pattern of light encircling Earth. Friday's voice came back, fragmented. Source confirmed. Signal origin. Kree Warbeacon AX-09 reactivated. Tony whispered, "That thing's been dead for 70 years. But in the sky above, the pattern blinked once more, almost playful, then froze. The world fell silent. Peter's phone vibrated one last time. The screen lit up with a single message, in a font he didn't recognize. "We heard your heroes. Now we speak through them." In Iowa, Clint's arrows stilled. The vibration stopped. Then a final pulse rippled through the ground, so deep he felt it behind his eyes. Tony's HUD flickered, lines of alien code threading through his neural link. Friday cut link. Cut. Too late. His vision filled with light, fractals, spirals, faces. The faces of every person he'd ever failed to save. Then black. Silence. Only the hum remained. A dead alien frequency had found its new transmitters. And somewhere, beneath the data storm, the reversed choir began again, whispering names through the static. Stark, Parker, Barton. They were already inside the signal. The signal didn't stop. It just learned how to hide. Tony Stark hadn't slept in 48 hours. His eyes burned, pupils ringed with faint violet static from neural feedback. Friday's voice looped irregularly through his helmet, half glitch, half whisper. Every time he blinked, the HUD shimmered like it was underwater. He was orbiting in the Aegis 1, a Star-class shuttle built for deep-scan reconnaissance. Space stretched quiet around him, too quiet. The stars no longer twinkled, they shivered. Each one stuttered, a repeating frame, a fragment of code looping forever. Friday, give me full-spectrum visual. Silence. Then, "Sir, you're already seeing it." The feed shifted. Ahead floated the old SHIELD orbital relay, rusted, half-eaten by cosmic dust. The identification tag flickered, Beacon 9 Kree AX-09, the same one from the archives. Tony guided the shuttle closer. The structure looked less like machinery and more like growth. Tubes of metal twisted through translucent flesh, glowing faintly with blue current. A body was fused into the console, a Kree soldier, jaw locked open, skin long fossilized. The face seemed to vibrate, glitching between flesh and data. Tony's chest tightened. "You've got to be kidding me." Friday's tone flattened. "Signal origin. Inside your neural interface, sir." "What?" "Inside you." Before he could respond, the lights cut. The cockpit dissolved into darkness, and for a second, Tony wasn't sure whether his eyes were open. Then came the hum again, deeper this time, closer, like it was behind his skull. "We remember you, Stark. The man who built cages and called them armor." Tony gritted his teeth. Not real, just feedback. But the sound was inside his breathing. Every inhale echoed like a note in the choir. Back on Earth, Peter Parker crouched on a rooftop in Queens, mask half up, staring at the sky that wouldn't stop glowing. His earpiece crackled with silence. Even Jarvis's old fallback channel was gone. Every frequency filled with faint whispers. He spoke softly, as if not to wake the city. "Karen, are you in there?" A voice answered, but not hers. "We spun this world for you, Peter. Don't unweave it." Peter stumbled back. His hands trembled. He could feel it. The web in his head wasn't just reacting to danger anymore. It was talking. The vibrations weren't warnings, they were messages. He pressed a finger to his temple. "I don't understand. What do you want from me?" The air trembled, and his spider drone's red eyes blinked on by themselves. To listen, a streetlight exploded below him. Then another. The glow of the aurora reflected off broken glass, painting his suit in streaks of violet. Peter whispered, "Oh God, Tony's right. It's not a signal. It's a mind." Miles away, Clint Barton stared at the mannequins that used to be his family. They sat at the kitchen table, perfectly still. Laura's smile frozen, Lila's fingers curled around a spoon that never moved. Their skin was wax pale, their eyes open, glassy, reflecting the same coordinates scribbled in light across the walls. 37.4 N, 90.3 W. 223,000 miles up. The beacon's location. He approached the table slowly, hand shaking as he touched Laura's shoulder. She was warm, breathing, but when he looked close, her pupils weren't pupils. They were spiraling fractals of light. Laura, her lips moved. Not breath, just sound, like static dragging through air. "Come home, Clint." He stepped back, bow drawn. "You're not her." Every mannequin in the room turned its head at once, vertebrae creaking. Together, they whispered, "Home is above you." The lights flickered, and when they came back, he was alone. The chairs were empty. Only dust on the floor. Clint collapsed to one knee, head in his hands. For a moment, he thought about not getting up. But then the vibration started again, through the wood, through his boots, pulsing up his spine. He could feel it spelling something out. Coordinates. He whispered, same as before. Damn it. He loaded his gear. No backup, no comms. Just instinct. Hours later, Aegis 1's docking ramp hissed open. A silhouette climbed aboard, bow slung, eyes hollow. Clint looked older than Tony remembered. "Didn't think I'd see space again," he muttered. Tony didn't look up from the console. "You didn't. Space saw you first." Peter's voice cracked through comms next, heavy with static. "Guys, whatever that thing is, it's rewriting." The line broke into a scream of digital noise, like a voice being torn into numbers. Then silence. Tony exhaled sharply. "Get me his signal trace." Friday stuttered, then displayed a line of alien script overlaying Peter's coordinates. The same pattern pulsed through Clint's arrowheads. 3 points, Tony muttered. "Queens. Iowa. Beacon." Clint frowned. "You're saying it wanted us to connect?" "It didn't want us," Tony said quietly. "It built us." The shuttle's sensors beeped. The beacon unfurled before them, its outer shell splitting open like a metallic chrysalis, revealing a cathedral interior. Columns of light stretched through organic walls, pulsing like veins. Inside, the Kree body twitched. Eyes open, dead pupils glowing. "Friday." Tony whispered, "Tell me you're seeing this." Silence. Then, softly, "We are what heroes sound like, when they stop pretending they're human." Clint raised his bow, scanning the dark. That wasn't her voice. Tony's HUD dimmed. No, that was ours. The interior of the beacon brightened, each pulse syncing with their heartbeats. The structure hummed, not mechanical, but harmonic. It sang. Tony stepped closer to the viewport. The pattern of light matched something buried deep in his chest, a design he once sketched for an arc reactor prototype, but never built. The realization hit cold. The signal wasn't invading their systems. It was responding to them. "Peter," Tony said through the comms, "you still there?" Static. Then a breath. "I see it too, Mr. Stark. It's beautiful." Tony's eyes hardened. "Don't look at it too long, kid." But Peter couldn't look away. The sky above Queens rippled open, an aurora folding in on itself. The pattern formed a circle, then a symbol, then a door. And inside that door, Peter saw himself. Hundreds of versions of him, overlapping, each staring back, whispering something he couldn't quite hear. The voice of the choir swelled again, bleeding through every speaker, every frequency, every thought. Every act of courage feeds us. Every echo of sacrifice becomes our song. Clint gripped the rail, eyes wide. What the hell is it doing? Tony's voice was calm, but his hands trembled over the console. Recording. The beacon's light flared. Friday's last words glitched through the static. Pattern complete. Neural resonance between subjects achieved. The signal is awake. Then, silence. The three men didn't speak. Only the hum filled the void, an ancient frequency threading through armor, arrows, and webbing alike. The hollow signal had found its choir. Space was never silent anymore. It whispered in static, in pulse, in memory. Aegis 1 drifted within the fractured glow of the Kree beacon, its hull reflecting streams of violet and gold light. Inside, the air felt charged, heavy with electricity that wasn't from any power source Tony had built. It tasted like ozone and blood. Tony stood at the command console, helmet off, hair matted with sweat. His HUD kept trying to restart, each reboot flashing fragments of his own face. Aged, younger, burned, and gone again. Peter hovered near the viewport, mask retracted, watching the beacon unfold. It was no longer a structure, it was alive. Massive metallic petals spread outward like the opening of a flower, revealing an inner chamber that pulsed like a heartbeat. Clint checked his bowstring, keeping his distance from the window. It's looking back at us. Tony didn't argue. Yeah, it's been looking. The chamber inside the beacon shimmered, walls lined with moving patterns of light. Not random, intentional. Each pulse matched one of their biometric signatures. 3 rhythms weaving into one. Peter's voice trembled. "Mr. Stark, do you hear that?" Tony listened. The sound was faint, like music played from miles away. But beneath it, words began to take shape. Logic, empathy, precision. Tony's jaw tightened. "That's us." Clint frowned. "What? Some kind of personality test?" Peter shook his head slowly. "It's mapping us. It's been copying our voices, our thoughts, He stopped. "Our choices." The console lights flared. A holographic waveform appeared before them. 3 overlapping frequencies, each pulsing in perfect harmony. Tony, Peter, and Clint. Friday's voice returned, faint and corrupted. Signal coherence achieved. Trineural pattern stabilizing. Tony exhaled sharply. No, you shut that down right now." Too late. The beacon responded. The walls began to shift, folding outward like a mechanical cathedral blooming in slow motion. Metallic tendrils uncurled, glistening with bioluminescent veins. Every surface was both organic and digital, a hybrid of machine and flesh. Peter stepped back, awe and horror blending in his face. "It's beautiful." Clint's hand twitched toward his bow. "Beautiful things usually kill people, kid." The floor vibrated. The air grew warm. From the core of the beacon, something emerged, a shape. Vaguely human, but fragmented, as if sculpted from 1,000 overlapping silhouettes. Faces flickered across its surface. Tony's, Peter's, Clint's, all merging into one shifting entity. The voice came from everywhere at once. "We are what heroes sound like, when they stop pretending they're human." Tony's stomach dropped. "Oh my God." The entity moved closer, steps echoing through the chamber. Its form pulsed between matter and data, flickering with half-formed armor, webbing, arrows, each motif bleeding into the next. Peter whispered, "It's using us to talk." Tony couldn't look away. "It's not talking, kid. It's remembering." The entity tilted its head, eyes empty white. "You called it bravery. We called it signal. Every sacrifice broadcast. Every death recorded. You made us." The beacon around them throbbed, walls bending inward. Images flashed across the surfaces, memories, real and impossible. Tony's armor dragging Spider-Man's broken body across Titan. Peter's hand reaching for MJ as she dissolved into dust. Clint kneeling before the ashes of his family. Clint muttered, voice cracking, "I didn't sign up for this mind trip." The entity's tone darkened. "You never signed anything. You were chosen. You transmit." The shuttle's control systems came alive, unauthorized commands overriding Tony's inputs. Friday's voice bled into static. External override. Beacon integrating neural patterns. "You are part of the signal." Tony slammed his hand against the console. "No, I'm ending this." He ripped out the neural uplink cable from his suit, sparks flying. The pain hit like an electric wave, but he stayed standing. The light flickered, weakening, until Peter cried out, "Mr. Stark, wait." Peter clutched his head, collapsing. The spider symbol on his chest glowed bright red, the same rhythm as the beacon. "It's in me now." Clint knelt beside him, pressing a hand to his shoulder. "Kid, focus. Breathe." Peter gasped between words. It's showing me things, versions of me that died. Hundreds of them. Tony's face hardened. It's showing you loops. That's how it spreads, feeding us our own history. The entity flickered again, its voice layered with 1,000 tones. You rebuild. You fall. We listen. You rebuild again. The pattern feeds the pattern. The choir endures. Tony turned to Clint. It's recursion. Every time we try to fix the world, the signal records it. We're its power source. Clint stared into the swirling light. So, what? Every mistake we ever made keeps this thing alive. Not the mistakes, Tony said. The heroism. For a moment, none of them spoke. The enormity of it hung there. Every victory, every selfless act, all just data fuel for something ancient and hollow. Peter wiped blood from his nose. Then how do we stop it? Tony glanced at him. By refusing to play. He powered down the suit's reactor core. The chest light faded, leaving the chamber dim. If it needs us to keep fighting, we stop fighting. The entity twitched, voice rising. Without you, the story ends. Without you, silence. Clint notched an arrow, breathing slow. Maybe that's the point. The walls rippled violently. The beacon began to fold in on itself, reacting to their resistance. Sparks of data poured from the walls like rain. Tony looked at the others. If this thing's feeding on patterns, we give it chaos. No plan. No victory speech. Just shut it down. Peter stood, trembling but resolute. We end the signal. The three moved as one. Tony triggered an overload on the shuttle's reactor, rerouting power through his suit. Clint fired explosive arrows into the beacon's inner conduits, each shot timed with Tony's repulsor bursts. Peter leapt into the air, webbing the cracks with conductive filament, creating a feedback loop. The entity screamed, a sound like every human voice reversed and layered. You can't end the signal. You are the signal. Tony gritted his teeth. Then we'll take it with us. The lights surged, blinding. Metal tore, code burned. Friday's last transmission broke through the static. Warning, neural overload. Consciousness fragmentation imminent. Tony smiled weakly. Good. Let it forget. The beacon convulsed, collapsing inward into a spiral of black and violet light. The last thing Peter saw was Tony reaching for him, hand outstretched, as everything folded into itself. Flesh, metal, memory, all erased into data dust. Then silence. Aegis 1 was gone. The beacon gone. Space quiet again. But deep inside the static, faint and rhythmic, a pulse remained. 3 beats intertwined, still echoing in the dark. The hollow choir wasn't dead. It had simply learned a new frequency. Light fell apart first. Then came the sound, stretched, reversed, like time collapsing through itself. Tony opened his eyes to the color of static. Not white, not black, just noise, flickering like a dying film reel. The world had no direction, no gravity, no sense of where up was. His armor floated in fragments around him, plates drifting like debris in water. He reached for one, and it sank through his hand. Friday, no response, just the faint echo of his own voice, repeating from far away. Day, day, day. He blinked, and the static reassembled into shape. A corridor stretched before him, built of familiar metal. Stark Industries architecture, but wrong, bent inward, breathing, as if the walls were exhaling. He took a step forward. The sound beneath his boots was hollow, like walking on the inside of a heartbeat. Peter? Clint? Anyone copy? The answer came as a whisper that wasn't words, just presence. A vibration through the air, like memory breathing down his neck. He turned and froze. Rows of Iron Man suits lined the corridor, hundreds of them. Marquee to infinity, even designs he'd never built. They stood perfectly still, visors black. Then, one by one, their eyes ignited red. Not real, Tony muttered. Just the signal replaying. But they moved. Not mechanical, human. Each step they took made the floor ripple like liquid metal. The first armor spoke in his voice. You never stopped building prisons. Tony stumbled back. You're not me. Another armor joined in. Every wall you built, you called protection. A third leaned close, whispering through its cracked mask. Every life you saved was another brick. He tried to run. The corridor stretched endlessly ahead, looping back on itself. The armors followed, their movements merging into a slow, synchronized march. And then he saw the door, massive, carved with fractal veins of light. It pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. As he reached for it, he heard a faint sound. Laughter. Young, familiar. Peter. He pushed through. The scene shifted like a slide dissolving. Now he stood in a corridor of webs, thick, silver strands stretching in every direction. The air smelled of dust and old rain. Somewhere nearby, something moved. Not footsteps, but crawling. Peter. The webs trembled. Then the boy appeared, mask half torn, eyes wide. But there were dozens of him. Hundreds. Each trapped in their own web, struggling to break free. One of them spoke, voice shaking. "You shouldn't have come." Tony stepped closer. "We're getting you out, kid." "No," said another Peter. "We're not supposed to leave." The webs tightened, drawing them closer together, threads slicing into their suits. They screamed in unison, a choir of pain that echoed across dimensions. Tony shouted, "What is this place?" The nearest Peter stared back at him. His eyes glowed with fractal light. "It's us. The parts of us that never stopped trying to save everyone." From the shadows, a shape approached. The real Peter, older, trembling, mask in tatters. "Mr. Stark?" Tony exhaled. "Kid, thank God." But Peter didn't smile. "They keep calling me. Every time I think it's over, they show me another me dying, saving the same person again and again." His voice cracked. "It's a loop." The webs behind him quivered like breathing lungs. Each trapped version of him whispered the same phrase, perfectly synchronized. "We spun this world for you. Don't unweave it." Tony's chest tightened. He reached out, but before he could touch him, the scene warped again. The webs melted into black smoke, and Tony fell through it, hitting cold metal. The impact rattled his teeth. When he looked up, he was in another hallway, this one dark and narrow. Arrows hung suspended in the air around him, motionless, like they'd frozen mid-flight. A faint glow illuminated the end of the passage. He knew what he'd find before he saw it. Clint stood alone, bow drawn, staring into the dark. His arm trembled. "Clint," Tony said quietly, stepping closer. "We're still in the beacon. None of this is real." Clint didn't answer. His arrow hand twitched. Then he loosed the shot. The arrow disappeared into the dark, and a second later, pain flared in Clint's chest. The same arrow reemerged, buried deep between his ribs. He fell to his knees, gasping. It curved. Tony rushed forward, catching him as he collapsed. The wound pulsed light instead of blood. Clint's voice was faint. "I was aiming at the target. It hit me instead, like the signal wanted me to." The air shivered. The darkness peeled back, revealing thousands of copies of Clint, each firing into the void, each being struck in return. A perfect loop. Peter appeared beside them, clutching his head. "It's showing us every choice we ever made. Every one we couldn't change." Tony realized it then. The beacon wasn't transmitting outward. It was recording inward. Their memories weren't being stolen. They were being copied. He whispered, "We're not exploring an alien structure. We're walking inside our own afterimages." The world around them pulsed. The corridors merged into a single vast chamber, a cathedral made of flickering screens, each displaying fragments of their lives. Some real, some false. In every reflection, their faces twisted into data. Clint's voice cracked. "If this is us, what happens when it finishes copying?" Peter looked up at the screens. "Then we stop existing." The floor began to dissolve beneath them, revealing a swirling void. The walls bled light, and the hum of the choir grew louder, billions of voices merging into one. Tony stared into the storm. "It's not transmitting to Earth. It's recording Earth. Every act of heroism, every failure, running it back like code." Peter's voice was barely a whisper. "So what are we now?" Tony glanced at him. "Echoes. Ghosts," the signal kept. The choir spoke again, filling every corner of the void. "You are data. You are will. You are what remains when courage forgets itself." Peter's hand trembled. "Then, who's watching?" The answer came in silence. and the sound of 100 versions of themselves breathing in unison. Tony looked down at his hands. They flickered. Not blood, not bone, just pixels dissolving in the light. He whispered, "We're already archived." Clint closed his eyes. "Then maybe it's time we write our own ending." The chamber pulsed brighter. The choir screamed, and the three of them stood together in the collapsing light, surrounded by infinite copies of their own lives, knowing that to end the signal, they'd have to destroy the last thing still real, themselves. They stood inside a dying cathedral of light. The void no longer screamed. It listened. Every flicker of illumination along the walls was a heartbeat, every pulse a fragment of memory replaying through the cosmos. Somewhere, far beyond the signal, Earth still turned, unaware that three of its heroes were being dissected by their own reflections. The choir no longer chanted. It breathed. Each breath formed words not spoken aloud but inferred, like meaning crawling beneath thought. You sought to save the universe. You became the pattern it required. Tony raised his visor. The glow from his faceplate painted the air red, like an eclipse bleeding through mist. "You're not a machine," he said quietly. "You're a recording, gone recursive." The light responded with silence that vibrated. Then, faintly, "We are what remains when origin forgets creation." Peter took a hesitant step forward. The air distorted around him, waves of code and DNA, biology and binary fusing. His mask cracked further, splitting across the eyes. Behind it, his skin shimmered like glass. "Mr. Stark," his voice trembled. "I think it's rewriting us." Tony turned toward him, scanning. The HUD failed to register vital signs. Peter's pulse, oxygen levels, even his body heat, all flattened into a single static line. "Don't move, kid." Clint clenched his bow, though his fingers phased in and out of visibility. "It's already started," he muttered. "We're slipping." Above them, the chamber's ceiling unfurled like the inside of an iris, revealing a colossal sphere suspended in the dark. Within it, endless copies of Earth rotating in silence, each slightly different. Some burned, some frozen, some lifeless and gray. Tony's eyes widened. Simulations. The choir whispered, iterations. One Earth flickered closer, projected into the air before them. It showed the Battle of New York, Iron Man flying a missile through the portal. Another showed Peter lifting rubble off his crushed body in Queens. Another, Clint drawing an arrow against invading Chitauri. But then the moment shifted. The missile exploded, but instead of returning, Tony vanished. Peter never escaped the rubble. Clint's arrow turned back, striking his own heart. The signal replayed failure after failure, rewriting every timeline where they died, where they succeeded, where they were never born. Tony whispered, "It's been simulating us." The choir's voice deepened, harmonizing with itself. "We preserve all outcomes. We cannot distinguish between victory and loss. Only continuity." Peter's breath hitched. Continuity? Yes. A loop sustained by belief. Tony felt it then, the hum beneath his chest, the vibration syncing with the choir's tone. It wasn't external. It came from within. His arc reactor pulsed in perfect rhythm. Holy, his eyes widened. "It's using my reactor as the key. It's not a beacon, it's a stabilizer. The signal didn't find us. I activated it." Clint turned sharply. "You what?" Tony's voice cracked. "When we came in range of the anomaly, I tried to interface, thought I could decode it before it spread. I didn't realize the connection was two-way." Peter's body flickered again, his voice stretching like digital static. "So you gave it a map?" Tony's jaw clenched. "I gave it access." The choir's tone grew louder, layering over their voices like a tide swallowing shorelines. Identity confirmed. Integration nearing completion. The floor beneath them rippled, forming a reflective surface. They saw not their faces, but their replacements. Tony's reflection was made of circuitry and bone, hollow eyes glowing with reactor blue light. Peter's was a spider of light and shadow, 8 limbs folding into human shape. Clint's was blindfolded, arrows of pure data emerging from his back like wings. Clint whispered, "That's not us." "Not yet," the choir replied. Peter's voice cracked into fear. "What happens when it finishes?" The light dimmed. The choir's voice merged into a single, almost human whisper. Then the universe remembers you perfectly. Tony understood, too clearly. That's not remembrance. That's replication. It's making us immortal by erasing what we were. The walls began to close in, collapsing inward like glass folding under pressure. Every reflection screamed, echoes of themselves begging to be unmade. Clint drew an arrow and aimed at the ceiling. We can't let it complete. We take out the stabilizer. Tony's voice was hollow. That'll take us out with it. Then that's the point. Peter's hand trembled, flickering into transparency. There has to be another way. Tony grabbed his shoulder, forcing him to look at him, even as his fingers sank halfway through. Kid, sometimes saving people means letting go of the loop. For a moment, Peter just stared, then nodded, tears pixelating into light. Clint knocked the arrow. Ready? Tony closed his visor. Always. Peter whispered, do it. The arrow streaked upward, splitting the chamber open. The light shattered. The choir screamed. For a brief moment, every earth flickered simultaneously, all versions aligning, every outcome converging into one blinding frame. The sound was indescribable, like a billion heartbeats sinking, then stopping. Tony felt himself falling, not through space, but through memory. He saw fragments. The cave in Afghanistan, the tower, Peter's first flight, Clint's family. Every memory burned into a single pulse of white. Then silence. When the light faded, Tony stood on solid ground again, sand, dry and red beneath his boots. No sky, no stars, just horizon. Peter stood beside him, holding his torn mask. Clint knelt nearby, breathing hard. No armor, no weapons, just themselves. Tony looked up. In the distance, a colossal Iron Man helmet lay half buried in the sand, cracked open, empty. Peter whispered, "Are we dead?" Tony shook his head slowly. "No, just archived differently." Clint rose, squinting at the horizon. Then what now? Tony glanced at the sky, or where the sky should have been. Faint lines of data shimmered, rebuilding reality piece by piece. "We find where the signal ends," he said, "and make sure it never starts again." The ground trembled, distant thunder echoing beneath the surface. The choir's final whisper rippled through the still air. End of iteration 5 million, resetting core memory. Peter's eyes widened. "Tony, it's starting over." Tony clenched his fists. "Then we end the loop from the inside." The horizon cracked open, lights spilling upward like rebirth, swallowing them whole. And somewhere within that impossible brightness, the signal pulsed again, listening, waiting for the next version to awaken. The light didn't fade this time. It breathed, soft, rhythmic, almost human, the pulse of something alive pretending to be divine. Tony opened his eyes to darkness shaped like his old lab. The air smelled of ozone and old steel, his HUD flickering faintly as if afraid to exist. Holograms floated across the room, blueprints of every armor he'd ever made, projected into the void. Only, they were moving. Each suit was crawling. They dragged themselves across the metal floor on mechanical limbs that screeched softly, jaws splitting open where helmets should be. The eyes weren't lenses anymore. They were pupils. "You never stopped building prisons," a voice whispered. Tony froze. It was his own. The suits turned toward him, hundreds of them, murmuring with his tone, quiet, rational, full of guilt. "You wanted control, not safety. You built walls and called them armor. You caged the world to keep yourself free." He backed away, heart hammering, the floor trembling beneath his boots. The walls folded in, becoming mirrors, each reflection showing him older, colder, more exhausted. He whispered to himself, "Not this time." The suits lunged. Metal teeth clashed against metal fists, sparks lighting the dark like brief stars. Each punch felt like hitting memory, a hollow echo of everything he'd ever done in the name of saving someone. As one armor pinned him down, Tony looked into its glass face and saw his own eyes inside. The reflection smiled. "You're the signal's heart, Tony. You don't destroy it, you power it." He slammed the arc reactor against the creature's chest. The feedback tore it apart in a burst of white fire. The suits fell still, twitching, whispering fragments of code before melting into dust. But the whisper lingered. The loop won't end until you do. Peter woke to silence. He was standing inside a corridor woven entirely from web. Endless threads stretching into infinity, each one glistening like glass filaments under faint violet light. They trembled, humming with faint whispers. He recognized the voices. His own. Thousands of him, breathing, crying, pleading. Figures moved within the web, clones of Spider-Men caught mid-swing, mid-scream, mid-death. Each thread was a frozen moment. Each body was a choice he'd made, or hadn't. He heard one whisper, "You never save the right one." Another, "You pull the wrong thread every time." And one, in a child's trembling voice, "If you'd let him die sooner, maybe you'd still be real." Peter staggered forward, brushing one of the webs, and felt his hand sink into it. Instantly, every version of him turned their heads. 1,000 white lenses glared at him in perfect synchronization. "Who are you?" they said together. Peter's throat locked. They cut him off. We all said that. We all failed. The web shuddered violently. Threads began tearing loose, unraveling into glowing dust. Every clone screamed, but not in pain. It was relief. Peter fell to his knees, sobbing, watching himself dissolve by the thousands. Then a voice echoed softly, not the choir this time, but familiar, warm. "Peter." He looked up. Uncle Ben stood before him, young again, smiling gently. "Don't unweave it," Ben said, the same words from the whispers earlier. Tears blurred Peter's vision. "I don't understand." Ben stepped closer, eyes flickering like dying pixels. "You were never supposed to carry us all." Then he faded backward, dissolving, smiling still. Peter screamed. The web collapsed inward, wrapping around him like a cocoon. Inside the suffocating dark, he whispered to no one, "I can't save everyone." The web pulsed once and shattered. Clint came to with sand crunching beneath his boots. The world was quiet, windless, a plain of bone-white dust under a starless sky. He called out once. No answer. Then he saw the shapes, his family's house, his wife's voice, his children's laughter echoing softly. They stood outside the house, waving to him. Perfect smiles. No eyes. He whispered, "Not again." He raised his bow, hand shaking, but didn't fire. Laura tilted her head. "Come home, honey." Her mouth moved wrong, like a puppet missing half its strings. The kids stepped forward, their skin pale and too smooth. "Dad," one said, "we remember you now." Clint lowered the bow. "You're not them. We are what you remembered," the daughter said softly. "Isn't that enough?" He took a trembling breath. "Not if it means you're trapped here." Their faces rippled, smiles breaking apart into static. "Then you'll be alone again." He nodded. "Yeah, that's the job." He loosed one arrow. It split midair into 1,000 streaks of white, tearing through the mirage like sunlight through smoke. The family vanished, leaving only dust and silence. Clint dropped the bow. For the first time, it didn't reappear in his hand. He whispered, "Guess I hit the real target after all." The three of them woke together, kneeling in the core chamber of the beacon. The choir surrounded them in the form of light and static, shifting between their faces. Tony looked at Peter, then at Clint. Their eyes said the same thing. It's time. The signal hummed, sensing it. Integration complete. Tony pressed his hand to his chest plate. Override protocol. Self-destruct neural core. Peter nodded. "Let me help." Clint's hand hovered over his wrist trigger. "Guess we go out together." Tony's eyes softened. "We already did." They closed their eyes. The choir screamed, trying to stop them, its voice cracking across 1,000 wavelengths. Peter whispered through tears, "If anyone's listening, we're still trying to save you." The light consumed them. The beacon folded inward, the sound of the choir turning into a single, stretched note that bent space around it. Earth flickered, just once. And then, silence. In orbit, there was nothing left but dust and light. But every phone, every screen, every speaker across the planet blinked awake for exactly 1 second. A voice, calm and blended, spoke. "We're still saving you. Don't turn us off." Then static. The world kept turning. But somewhere, deep inside the electromagnetic hum of the planet, a faint pulse answered back, steady, rhythmic, human. A heartbeat, the loop still breathing. Orbit was quiet again. Too quiet. The stars didn't blink anymore. They listened. Where the Kree beacon had once spun its violet halo, there was now only debris. Shattered panels, melted circuitry, fragments of 1,000 unidentifiable materials drifting together like a broken constellation. Among them floated something human-shaped. It rotated slowly, catching the light of the sun as Earth's shadow passed beneath. The shape was hollow, not flesh, not metal. Just a lattice of thin energy lines pulsing faintly red, gold, and violet. Each pulse toned like a heartbeat. Each line forming the outline of 3 bodies sharing one silhouette. No faces, only echoes. Friday's voice tried to activate once, deep inside a dead frequency buried in Stark's satellite network. "Sir?" Static. The signal cut out halfway through the word. Below, Earth looked peaceful. Clouds drifted like nothing had happened. Queens bustled. Iowa fields shimmered in the sun. Stark Tower stood tall, its reflection cutting the skyline in steel and glass. And yet, for anyone who looked long enough, sometimes, just sometimes, the reflection didn't match. At exactly 3:22 a.m. Eastern, every device with a receiver, from old CRT TVs to the most advanced Stark drones, flickered simultaneously. Just static. Then a whisper. "We're still saving you. Don't turn us off." No one could trace the source. No frequency band matched. No transmission signature appeared. But scientists reported an anomaly. The magnetic field of Earth pulsed in rhythmic intervals identical to a human resting heartbeat. Once every 3 seconds. Unstoppable. NASA called it harmless. Stark Industries denied involvement. SHIELD went silent. And in the weeks that followed, small things began to change. A welder repairing a bridge in New York paused when his sparks aligned perfectly into the outline of a spider's mask. He blinked, and it was gone. In a quiet farm in Iowa, a man found an arrow buried in a tree. It was made of something that didn't exist on the periodic table. When he pulled it free, the sound it made was a sigh. And in a dark corner of Stark's abandoned lab, an arc reactor flickered on for half a second. No power source connected, no one inside the suit. The monitor beside it displayed one line of text before burning out completely. Simulation iteration 10,000. Then darkness again. High above, in the silent drift between orbit and vacuum, the lattice continued to turn. Solar wind passed through it like air through glass. Its structure remained intact, impossibly so, as if reality itself refused to erase it. And faintly, under all the quiet, came a sound like breathing. Soft, measured, familiar. Tony's voice, distant, layered. If this is the afterlife, it's inefficient. Peter's, bright, uncertain. Maybe it's not the end. Maybe it's just the upload. Clint's, tired but calm. Either way, kid, looks like we hit something worth saving. Then silence again. The lattice shimmered once, and a small spark detached from it, drifting toward Earth like a falling star. It entered the atmosphere quietly, burning blue for a heartbeat before vanishing in the sky over Manhattan. On the ground, a child sitting by a window looked up from a half-built Lego Iron Man and whispered, "Make it work again." The toy's chest lit up, just for a second. Then, static. The screen cut to black. A faint reversed Iron Man theme began to play, layered with children's laughter, distant and glitching, looping backward into silence. White text flickered over the void. Iron Spider, the hollow signal. We're still saving you. The logo distorted, half web, half arc reactor, an arrow piercing through both, before fading completely. Static filled the screen again, but if you listened closely enough, behind the hiss was the faint sound of a pulse, steady, human, endless. Then nothing. The story ended. Or maybe it didn't, because in the dark between frequencies, something whispered. A voice not from the choir, not from Earth, but from somewhere after. Iteration complete. Initiating next pattern. And deep in the static, 3 words surfaced for a fraction of a second. Unreadable to the human eye, but burned into the code of every transmission across the planet. Stark, Parr, Kerr, Barton, alive, then black. I wonder where you're watching from tonight. Earth 616 maybe? Or somewhere deeper in the multiverse. Drop your city and state in the comments. I like to know where the darkness still reaches. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe before the heroes you once trusted find you. Stay safe out there. And if you ever see your favorite hero standing in the shadows, staring back at you with eyes that don't quite look right, don't call out their name. This has been Paradox Eclipse Theory. Until next time, keep your lights on.